I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, it's recording now. Um, so Lake Anatomy, it had wildlife value, hunting value, but it was also value for search and rescue in case this was old times, you know. Nowadays, Gwich'in use modern ways of search and rescue, you know. Gwich'in do things a lot of, they do a lot of things like Western ways now, you know. Um, I'll just come out and say it. They're really white. They're really white now. Well, it's true. That's the best way I could explain it. You know, all this stuff has been fallen into complete disuse. This is all ancient stuff you're learning. You know, they do everything Western. They do everything Western now. You know, even though they're natives, they do everything Western. We do a lot of things in Western now. Like helicopters and all that stuff, you know. But in the old days, if someone tipped over in a canoe, like on the lower left belly or lower eastern belly, and there's two Gwich'in men standing there, one would say to the other, you know, he tipped over lower left belly, and right there you would know exactly where he's talking about, you know. The lake knowledge, it's really amazing. My aunt Kathy, the woman you see there, she said that the hunters, they even knew where to hunt ducks in the morning, um, where the ducks would be swimming toward the sun, and they would be blinded for like 20 minutes because they would be looking into the sun. And the Gwich'in hunters would know to hide under the sun to get close enough to shoot them with bow and arrows. That was like I was just blown away by that. I was like, wow, I didn't. I mean, just really valuable stuff that all this has been left behind, you know, after modernization. Just me and Dr. West and a couple of us were able to retrieve this knowledge. And Robert Frank said, you'll be interested in this as someone that works in land offices. Robert Frank said, Rural Cap did mapping and they interviewed a few people and then they left. We never got the maps, he said, and that was frustrating because they worked a lot with maps. And um, he also said during the land claims era, when maps were created to draw boundaries for the corporations and village lands, Robert said, I don't think they made good maps for the boundaries during the land claims because they didn't spend enough time in the village to get to know the people first. There's no way you can make a good map with native people in the village in 1 week. Just no way. That's really true because remember what I said earlier in the Zoom? It took me years to get to know the right people to make better maps, you know. So in Anilka, they likely mapped village lands for a week or two at most with villagers, or probably a month at most. On a personal note, it took me 10 years to make my maps this good, you know. So that begs the question, you know, how accurate are the native boundaries that Inksa and Melka made, you know? Very interesting. Traditional maps show dramatic changes from climate change, so they can be helpful in tracking changes in the ecosystem. You could see this is a map in Chalkitzik. You could see from Caulfield's map in 1980, you see all those rivers there, and you see all the rivers now. This was just last year. You see how most of them have dried up and they've completely warped, and some of them have dried out, and the channels have changed too. There's new channels. Um, Gwich'in mapping allowed the discovery of two land claims by the northern Gwich'in tribes to extend the reservation on the north and south ends 1980. This is really sensitive information. I didn't really want to give it. I trust you, Michelle, but I didn't really want to give this to non-natives. This was supposed to be for the Native American Committee at the White House. But similar to efforts in Fort Yukon to claim more village lands in the early 90s, they were trying to get more. They were trying to get more. They were trying to get more village corporation lands in the 90s. There was a movement for them to get more of their land back. Um, Both petitions to extend the reservation were turned down by the Department of Interior. Um, 10-year regional mapping project was funded by every government agency in Alaska and Interior. It was funded by Fish and Wildlife, UAF. Tanana Chiefs Conference was a big funder. Council of Athabascan tribal governments, but They kept running out of funding because the project kept going on and on and on. I mean, you see the breadth of information, right? It just kept going on and on. You see how this PowerPoint's going on and on, and even Zoom can't, even Zoom can't, even Zoom can't handle it. It's even crashing Zoom. That's how much information is on there. Gwich'in mapping from 2012 to 2022 based on mapping done in 1980 for Milka. Oh, I explained all this fun. Yeah, I explained that. UC Berkeley and the University of Alaska Fairbanks wanted me to do it as a PhD project under them. It is very academic, I'll admit. I tried not to make it be. Um, they both those universities wanted me to do this as a PhD project under them. It would have meant graduate housing where I wasn't living in like houses like this. And it would have meant full funding and not low contracts that gave impoverished conditions to me. But the government funding meant freedom and more community orientation, more ownership to the land. I mean, more ownership of the maps by the people. So therefore, yeah, um, drawbacks to academia. Academia tends to consume native knowledge and they tend to claim it and guard it from its own people. I've seen it because I have a master's degree and a bachelor's. It gets stuck in the alienating environment of the university. It becomes sophisticated and highly academic and therefore unreadable to the native people that gave it. Tends not to get back to the people, which is what I just explained in a couple of ways. Seems to work to boost the profiles and credits of the professors and departments than help the actual people. Professors tend to be the bosses and micromanage the maps within Western structures, which themselves are alienating to Native people. In conclusion, governments should help tribes more and not leave it to universities because, like I said, there's more freedom when it's government project, you know? Also, this school teacher here, she told me something interesting when I explained this to her. She said, I'm really happy you didn't do it as a PhD. Hello, we're back. I'm just about done. I'm like 2 minutes from being done. Are you still there, Michelle?
Back.
Okay, we're like 2 minutes from being done, so I'll just, okay, go right there. So I was talking about academia. Government should get more involved because the people will have more control over it if government is doing it rather than universities, because you just saw the reasons I listed for that, why it's a bad idea for them to do it. Secondly, the school teacher here, oh, you there, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay.
Still.
Yeah. The school teacher said, I'm really happy you didn't go to UC Berkeley or UAF and I'm happy you didn't do this as a PhD student. And she said, I'll tell you why. Because you would have just been another academic pulling information from them and leaving back to your fancy place in the city, and they wouldn't have felt connected to you because you stayed and because you suffered the same living conditions they did. Therefore, they trusted you more and they gave you more information they wouldn't have otherwise. Isn't that interesting? I never thought of that. I was like, wow, you have a strong point there. Uh,
Yeah, this is fun.
yeah, I was like, wow, yeah. Anyways, community project. We did a giant map on the community hall floor. You see Donovan there, little 22-year-old. He was pacing the quads together. And you see my grandpa crawling on the maps there. There was another elder there too, Alan, helping him. They were trying to trace the a really long trade route that the Gwich'in had from Arctic Village to the Yukon River. The culture is passed down to a couple more elders, a couple more villages I went to. The cultures pass down the information by taking the youth on the land, which is the best way. By the way, the best way for the youth to learn is to actually be on the land and ground truth all this, not learn it on maps. But I want to ensure the land knowledge was really saved by doing this, and I didn't want to take chances, you know. Gwich'in youth participated too. Gwich'in, Gary Jr. even drew the Gwich'in Children's Trail that an elder used to take kids on when she was alive. After she passed, nobody's done that since. Um, uh, Programs this summer to take kids on. Yeah, like I said, my cousin's trying to do that right now with her husband. They're trying to take kids back on these trails, you know, fell into disuse 40 years ago because Gwich'in all became modernized. Further research is needed. I worked with the Otnat. This is what James Carey said, a famous native map place name person at UAF. This is what he said, and I quoted him. I worked with the Otna at the Baskins, which is down the highway, and they only have a quarter of the size of the land that Gwich'in have. And we've documented almost 5,000 place names. The Gwich'in maps altogether have only 1,000. So I know for sure all the names have not been documented. And so this, you see the breadth of information, right? That's not even all of it, according to him. Um, so indigenous maps of Guatemala, I think I explained that they were more accurate than the Western maps. So Spanish academics, I heard they prefer to use the native maps over the Western because they're more accurate. Because like I said, they even map anthills and stuff. And they story orient them too, which yeah. Visiting old trails for food security in light of rising costs of food. Eggs is like $9 right now. Political instability in the United States, like 9/11, you know, planes stopped coming for like 3 days and the stores ran out. So something like that happens again. Be nice to know where these trails are, you know. Professor Camerling, I told him everything I said to you in the introduction, Michelle. I told him that too, and he said maybe the reason it's not institutionalized this kind of knowledge, and the reason you're not getting a job out of it and funding is because maybe it's just too far ahead of everyone. You know, you're probably ahead of your time. He said. Um, More support for Northern Indigenous researchers. This type of work should get more support. I should have had an office, but UAF did not show interest to this research. They would only give lip service, but no funding or any real help. You know, they'd say, "Oh, wow, interesting," but look, I should be in an office right now. You know, see my house. I should be in an office right now in the city. I didn't get the that much more support from the Arctic research community in general. So they need to get more enlightened too. Look, I even had to set up an office in the school gym to use the school Wi-Fi, you know, because classes were in session, you know, just because I had to download one of these maps to get it to the archives because I didn't trust it on my computer in the village. Because what if my computer crashed, you know, and took that map with it, you know, that would have been lost forever. So it was very important that I get the maps or the information to the archives in Fairbanks as quick as possible, you know. It got ridiculously hard, but I kept going. Look at that. I had to walk that trail to UAF for I rented a room in a house with the funding I got from this. I had to walk all the way to UAF from Geis Road because the contracts didn't give me enough to buy a car. And I needed to go there to access Dr. West's dissertation and everything. And I didn't like lugging books back and forth because you see how far that trail is. So I tended just to go to the library and pour over Dr. West's books and Dr. Osgood's books, you know, all the anthropologists that did work among Gwich'in to add their knowledge to this, because I was dealing with old Gwich'in. And then look at that on the right side. I even had to sit outside of school to download something because because it was like midnight and I didn't want to wake up Mr. Green, the principal. So I sat on the steps, even though it was cold and it was May, just to download one of the maps because like I said, I didn't trust these materials being on my laptop too long, you know, because I didn't want to lose them or anything. The funding got lighter and lighter as time went on, and I had to do lots of crowdfunding toward the end. Continued to have little to no support while others got massive funding, and we're not doing anything close to what I was doing. There was another guy, I took out his name to avoid defamation lawsuits. He was doing place name work, but and look at how much UAF was supporting him. You know, they gave him full funding. He had elders flying out to Fairbanks. I didn't have that kind of support. look at me on the right side. I was working in Safeway, you know. At some time, I took a picture. I was like, I got to take a picture of this to show people how hard it gets, you know, with this map thing. I was working Safeway at one point, but it all got done, and I'm moving on. So thank you very much from Arctic Village, Alaska. Okay, now it's a Q&A period. If you and your spouse have any questions, it's still recording.
So my question is,
You're
if
chopping.
you could get
Okay, you're good
this
now.
sort of information in the right place, oh,
Uh-huh.
you could get this sort of information in the right place, what is the
I try.
result you would want to have?
I wanted to off. Well, I'm burned out now. I don't want nothing now. I want to do different something different. I knocked on every door. I even knocked on BLM's door. That guy over at BLM, they said he would be interested. Um, he basically said, "No, I'm not interested." And you know, almost hung. He didn't hang up on me, but he was pretty blunt, you know. And it wasn't new because I got the same response at National Park Service. I got there'd be one person that would fund me I'm sure they don't mind me mentioning their name, Steve Berenson at Fishing and Wildlife. But as soon as he retired, the interest for my work
Mhm.
went with him. And also with James Kelly at CATG, he was interested, but again, he retired to take care of his granddaughter. And guess what? The interest for my project went with him because every time that would happen, the new administration would not be interested in my project. And I was living off contracts, you know, which was not good because I wasn't building my credit, and I wasn't able to get a mortgage or anything. I wasn't able to do a lot with you can't do a lot with contracts, you know. Contracts keep you in poverty, even if they're a lot, you know, because it's like
Yeah.
one-time payment type way, you know. But I don't know if I fully
How
answered your
much do
question.
you think that,
I think you're saying, what do you want to keep going? I want more people involved, and there are finally my childhood friend Sam Alexander is he teaches Gwich'in language at UAF. He's doing this finally. There's another PhD student, Chris Cannon. He's doing a lot of work like this with stars, astronomy stuff. With astronomy is a whole different thing. And Yvonne Peters doing a lot of work with it now, and his daughter is doing a lot of work with this. So there's a lot of people coming in now. Finally, you know, it was just me for like 10 years. But I'm burnt out. I'm going into a different field. I mean, I was telling a friend last night, even if they gave me the chair tomorrow and they gave me my own office and everything, I would still quit because I'm burned out, you know. I have too much of a history with this to have any kind of future, you know. I want to I have different career fields in mind, and I'm tired of knocking on doors. I knocked on every door, even your door, you know, not you, I mean with your someone other guy at BLM. I knocked on every door in the interior, and none opened, you know. They would say, "Oh, interesting," you know, but that's how far it went. They didn't really, like I said, like you said too, it wasn't institutionalized, you know. In Canada, it's institutionalized already.
so I was going to ask you, what do you think is the difference between thinks about traditional place and how the US approaches traditional play?
Um, that's easy. Like I heard in Vermont, a lot of the non-natives, even Caucasian people, non-native people in Vermont, they use a lot of the Mohawk trails. I heard, and the parks, they use the Mohawk trails as walking trails. Yeah. So yeah, there's no problem there at all. They could be used by anybody, you know, just as long as they respect the land, you know. But since fortunately, a lot of native people up here still control a lot of their own land, which is very they're probably the last native people that do that in the US, so they have the privilege of using their old trails again, you know? Did that answer your question? I think you went on mute.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy to think about.
Oh,
Oh, I'm off mute. I just said I think that's an interesting dichotomy to think about. There's a lot to unpack with that. I think that's good.
yeah, yeah. Did your
What do
spouse have?
you think right now?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
uh, Well, so in my administration seems very
You're what? Sorry, you're getting choppy again a little bit.
allowing a voice for tribes. Yeah, seen on allowing a space for tribal voices. But
Allowing a
in
space for
your
tribal voices.
long research, you've been through a lot of this. Like, what do you really think of that?
You cut out there the first part. I
How
heard something
genuine
about,
is it?
sorry, you're gonna have to repeat some of the first part of what you said. I caught the part where you said allowing a space for tribal voices. In what?
Oh, so my question was the current administration under this president, President
Yeah.
Biden, seems to be favorable in providing more of a space for tribal voices. You've been doing this for such a long, what is that right now? Is there more of a space or is it, what is it
Well,
you've been at?
it's interesting you said that because this presentation you just saw, it was originally supposed to be for the White House itself. Yeah, it's a long story. I don't really want to get into it because we're probably running out of time on the Zoom. But the White House does have a Native American committee, and within that committee they have four subcommittees. And there's a subcommittee that's specifically on like traditional land and climate impacts to tribal lands. And I was supposed to give this presentation to them, but there was some miscommunication, and I don't know if they felt interested or anything. I don't know. I haven't heard back from them. So I want to make this presentation and then put it on LinkedIn, put it on YouTube, and maybe send them the link. But um, uh, I'm not get. I don't know a lot. It's a very new field. I don't see a lot. I don't see a big community for it, even nationwide. You know, maybe there's pockets of people doing things like at UC Berkeley. They were doing a lot, which they already saw traditional Native American knowledge on the same level as Western science and Western environmental and natural resource management. They've already accepted West Native knowledge on the same level as that. I was very impressed. They're like 10, 20 years ahead of a lot of the US, you know, in terms of that, of uh blending the two together, you know, to complement each other, make it for a more accurate management and knowledge of the land, you know. I think you're on mute.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed. I hope that this information can get out there.
Yeah,
I
me
know
too.
that what you've done has greatly contributed to, you put it in a format difficult to translate traditional place names and traditional mapping to something that applies to an environmental impact statement and the data required to do it, right?
Yeah,
And
which
you've
doesn't
done an
surprise me.
amazing job of bridging both of those worlds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Well, that's just my point, you know. There's no structure even in Western land laws yet to incorporate this kind of knowledge, you know. Because that Futures Lab Institute I was telling you about, where they're doing this kind of work, they're creating some kind of compendium for my kind of work, my kind of knowledge. There's like six young Native American or grad students that are involved in it, and I think I'm invited to their meeting at the end of this month. I might still be involved with them. Um, sorry, I might still be involved with them, but they're just them though, because they're my people. You know, they do exactly what I do. They're based in Victoria, British Columbia. They do what I do, and they actually appreciate my work. And they're the kind of people that would give me an office and would give me funding. You know, I don't know. I want to keep this secret, but I'm actually moving to the south. I'm moving out of state, and I might actually uh, meet those people in person, you know. But they're called the Indigenous Futures Lab. They're based in Victoria, British Columbia, and they're basically trying to create a North America-wide compendium of Native land knowledge. And the leader of it, Dr. DeAndre Smiles, who's a Native guy, I think I told you about him. He's originally from Minnesota, but he's been living in Canada most of his life, and he runs that institute, and he's a Native American professor there. And he told me that he had the same problem I'm having. He said a lot of people just in Canada, he said there's more reception to it. But when he tours the US and he gives lectures, he says he doesn't see it accepted. He doesn't, he basically has the same problem I've been having. It's not accepted the way it's accepted in Canada, you know? So um, I think the US really needs to catch up and appreciate this kind of knowledge, you know, that could help land management. You know, it's not going to hurt it at all, you know? But yeah.
No, I think you bring up a good point. I think sometimes it's easy to sit in a position where we think that all of this rich information should just be voluntarily given, but not acknowledge that it's a profession. And
Yeah, it
I
requires
think
work, and people can't
that's
work
a
for free.
downside.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we need to learn, is that
yeah,
it's it's one thing to say that you want to incorporate native knowledge, but it's another thing to be willing to pay for it at the same scale that we pay for the rest of our knowledge,
exactly.
because it's still work.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's equitable to pay that work at an equitable scale. I agree.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Well, I'm impressed, and I appreciate that I could.
did your spouse have any questions?
I don't know. I'll have to ask him. He just
Oh, it's
was
fine.
out here for the longest time. He was very interested.
It's
Give him a
fine.
minute. He walked
It's
back
fine.
up, take care of the dog.
It's fine. It's fine. Well, it was good. It was good, Michelle. So I think I'm gonna end it here, and um thank you for being my audience.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. We'll keep in contact. You know where
Yeah,
I'm at. So
sure, sure. Okay, signing off now. Stopping recording.